Somewhere inside this refugee camp, Khanum Mohammed lived with her family. They are far from the anxiety and fear of life back in Syria. They had to hastily escape home after their son left the army ranks. Khanum doesn't want her face shown for fear of reprisals against her relatives in Syria.
If you are caught by the security forces, they will not release you. My husband is old. If they beat him, he will die.
Khanum and her family members are among the hundreds of Syrians fleeing to Iraqi Kurdistan as violence continues to rage in the country. Kurdish government sources put the number of refugees arriving in recent weeks at over 2,000 people. Those who flee are a mixture of civilians and soldiers defecting from the army. Some of them live here in Mukubli camp in northern Duhok province. Life here is in a primitive state. Families live in single-room homes made of concrete blocks covered with tents. The drinking water is not sanitary and there is no hospital. Most men work as manual laborers. Children, for lack of entertainment, play cards.
The residents of this camp live under difficult and harsh conditions. They have placed their hopes in the possibility of regime change in Syria, but with ongoing protests and violence in the country, that very possibility is uncertain.
Amid the uncertainty and away from their homeland, many Syrians are taking part in protests against their government. Here in Erbil, the capital of the Kurdistan region, the Syrian Kurdish community has been active in staging mass rallies. Holding up the pictures of victims and waving Syrian and Kurdish flags, they demand an end to the rule of President Bashar al-Assad. Omar Sewian was a soldier near Homs when the Syrian army pounded the rebellious city for weeks. Appalled by the scenes of bloodshed, he says he could no longer stand it. With the help of smugglers, he crossed the border to Iraq in early February. It was really terrible. Even when you see someone die on TV, you will feel bad. Terrible things were happening. Syrian soldiers were on the streets every day. People's sin was that they demanded freedom and wanted to live as free humans. Omar managed to run away after he applied for a furlough. His furlough was approved. Syrian soldiers want to defect, but they cannot. They are afraid about what will happen to their families. Assad's Shabiha militias will destroy their homes. Hamza Jaber knows all too well what it means to be caught by Syrian government forces. His wounded fingers attest to the pain and agony he had to endure in prison. They electrocuted me for 4 or 5 seconds. It threw me on the floor. It was strange that I didn't die. When they electrocute you, you cannot breathe. I was lucky. I was close to death, but didn't die. And lucky he was. Many Syrians who enter government prisons nowadays do not get out alive. They asked me if I support Bashar Assad. I said I'm just a worker. I have nothing to do with the protests, so they released me. And the struggle in Syria continues. Refugees here like Khanum are concerned about the future.
As long as Bashar Assad is in power, we cannot return. We have to stay here.
For the time being, the priority for Khanum's family and others is to figure out a way just to survive. Mohammed, Salih, Rudaw.